Hey everyone, how's y'all doing out there? Let me get to turn this off. Turn the countdown off. How you doing? It's a little bit, what is the temperature here today? It's 75 degrees on the east coast of the USA. And as you'll be able to tell, it looks like it's overcast, which it is. Outside Roots Rock or Final Cut Pro Radio headquarters. That's the backyard. And this is my upstairs studio. So we're going to talk about a few Final Cut Pro things today. I think we're going to talk mainly about internal versus external media. I think that's what we're going to do. This is Final Cut Pro Radio RTV Live. If you don't know already, my name is Richard Taylor. Let me just check on a few things. Oh yeah, we're good there. We're good there. So how's everybody doing? I'm going to see if the comments are working. I'll add them to the show if you comment live. Let me check. See what's going on. I'm going to comment just to make sure everything's working. Yes, there we go. Just made a comment. Just meant to make sure the comments are working. I can add them to the live feed. If you ask a question or have a question, you can ask either way. Have a comment about Final Cut Pro, go ahead and post them on YouTube or Facebook, either one. Either one will work. So which do you prefer? Well, actually, before we go on to talking about internal versus external media, let's just go over the latest news, which is actually not much, is it? Have anybody seen any heads or tails of Final Cut Pro? Has anybody seen anything? Nope. Everything's getting updated but Final Cut Pro, right? Everything's getting updated but Final Cut Pro. We just had a B-Raw 2.0 beta from Blackmagic Design. We had the Sony S3 7S camera that came out a couple weeks ago. Blackmagic had the 12K camera. They're 12K, not 6K, not 8K. They leapfrogged everybody and gave us 12K. Apple, of course, is doing their normal things. Let me just check and see exactly what's going on with Apple. Let's see. Nope, nothing going on in the newsroom, just the same old stuff. Phil Schiller advances to Apple Fellow. I'm not sure what that means. But no Final Cut Pro news. No Final Cut Pro news. So pretty much looks like we're going to be waiting for Big Sur, right? Speaking of Big Sur, so I installed Big Sur, the public beta of Big Sur I have 2 NVMe drives besides my main drive in my Mac Pro. One is external via Thunderbolt 3, 2 terabyte, and one is internal on the PCIe bus. So I installed Big Sur on the PCIe drive, and when I would try to install it, it kept failing. So it kept failing. Let me just tune this in here. There we go. Final Cut Pro Radio. How are you doing with your Big Sur install? How many people have installed Big Sur to play around with it? The one thing that I will say is Final Cut Pro definitely seems snappier on it. I think my Mac Pro launches faster on Big Sur, but I'm not using Big Sur like right now, for example, because my software doesn't work on it. Everything's not, working on it. There's a couple of things that I use. As a matter of fact, I got to change this. Silent mode. So, for example, Little Snitch, my traffic monitor that I use, doesn't work on Big Sur. Another thing is Sound Source from Rogue Amiga does not work on Big Sur. There's Final Cut Pro Radio Backyard, but this is what I wanted to show you. That's I'm going to adjust that just a little bit while I'm talking to you. Get it off the edge of the board. There we go. There we go. It's a little better. That's my overhead camera that I use. Coffee, obviously. My audio interface, the Apollo Twin X. They just came out with a new one, brand new one. I got a hotline to Apple HQ here. We might get a call from the Final Cut Pro team a little bit later. Classic Lemonade. And this is my Stream Deck. That is my desktop. So anyway, my experience, I like Big Sur so far, the beta, but there's things that I need that don't work on Big Sur yet, so I can't really use it on a day-to-day basis. But the OS itself seemed like it was snappier. It seemed Final Cut Pro seemed a little bit snappier. It's maybe 5%, 10%. I'm not sure which. But anyway, how are you doing with your Big Sur beta? So I've had a few problems. I had a few problems with the install, and they were resolved on Twitter. So I formatted my internal 2 terabyte NVMe SSD to APFS. That was one of the things. I think that was wrong. Before, it was just Mac OS Extended. I made a Big Sur beta volume, specifically called Big Sur beta, and then I reinstalled Big Sur. So when I did that, when I was successful, I got this. This is what the volume looked like. 2 terabyte Sabrent. It had Big Sur beta and Big Sur beta data. Initially, when I was successful. But when I rebooted into Catalina and then tried to boot back into Big Sur, my Big Sur beta volume went missing. It was not there in Catalina. And the Big Sur volume I couldn't boot into it from Catalina. Now I found out what the problem was. Problem was Catalina needed the latest 10.15.6 update in order to recognize the new Big Sur disk. That was the problem. And I got that from friends on Twitter. Drew was helping me out. And James Atkinson said, I believe you need 10.15.6. Earlier versions don't recognize the new volumes. He was absolutely correct. That's what the problem was. Once I updated Catalina to 10.15.6, Catalina would then see the Big Sur volume to boot into. Stuart Morgan says, do you think Big Sur will improve eGPU integration with Final Cut Pro? Late Catalina versions seem to be getting slower. I've heard that that's exactly one of the things that Big Sur does. And I've also heard that I haven't had any real problems with Final Cut Pro and Catalina. nothing's out of the usual. And like I said, I think Final Cut Pro is actually working faster. I think it's snappier, 5 or 10% snappier in Big Sur compared to Catalina. So listen, every time there's an event, last year was the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. Are they going to show anything at Final Cut Pro 10.5? They showed us nothing. They showed us absolutely nothing at the summit. The Apple I'm talking about, the actual summit itself was very good, as it always is, but Apple didn't show us anything. They showed us 10.4.7, which was the same thing we saw a month and a half earlier. So there wasn't anything there. Then we said, okay, maybe it'll happen end of the year. It didn't happen. Maybe it happened NAB. NAB was canceled. It didn't happen there. They still could have released it around NAB because other people released stuff. Blackmagic released updates. Other companies did as well. So they could have. I think they were probably planning on it. Didn't work out. Then what's coming next? Logic Pro 10.5 came out in May the 12th, I think. I said, okay, well, here we go. Final Cut Pro 10.5 certainly be out. Logic Pro 10.5 is out. Of course, Final Cut Pro. Nope, didn't happen. WWDC, we were hoping for a viewing of Final Cut Pro. They did show us a new version. They did not identify the new version, and they showed it working on ARM chip, this Apple Silicon chip. So that's the new version that they did show us. However, they didn't identify it. They didn't say anything about when it's going to come out. So the next logical step, I mean, could it come out in August? Yeah, but I don't think it's going to. I'd be surprised, pleasantly surprised it came out in August. I don't think it's going to. So the next time come out when Big Sur comes out. I don't think you're going to need a Big Sur to run Final Cut Pro 10.5. I think you're going to need Catalina, the latest version of Catalina 10.15.6, or Big Sur. I have a feeling they're going to be pushing Big Sur for this version of Final Cut Pro, for whatever reason. So I think Big Sur will be better than Catalina. That's kind of the things what I've been hearing. I'm just adjusting my microphone a little bit. So, how many people are running Big Sur, the beta? But the public beta is available now. You have to register, then you'll get it'll update in your system preferences. I have been running it after I got my problems figured out, which was there's two things. Number one, you have to, I don't know if you have to, but it seems like to update your SSD or your hard drive to APFS, Apple File System, the new version. And also, if you're on Catalina, update to 10.15.6. Then it should work. Everyone has major updates these days. Blackmagic B-RAW 2.0 beta is out. So we never saw B-RAW support in Final Cut Pro version 1. Will we see a version 2 B-RAW support in Final Cut Pro? We'll have to see how that goes. So let's go and start on talking about internal versus external media. Which do you prefer? Do you prefer internal media, which means you copy everything inside the library? Or do you prefer external managed media, which is managed by Final Cut Pro externally, not the same as the internal? Which one do you prefer? Big projects, absolutely external. Absolutely. If you have everybody I've talked to, Garrett says external media SSD drives. Everybody I talk to from the film industry, making movies, making TV shows, they all do external media. Many of them organize in the Finder, which is what I do before I import the stuff inside the Final Cut Pro. You can when you drag and drop a folder that has media named the way you want it to, not the cryptic names that Final Cut Pro uses, the weird names, it'll copy the folder name as a keyword collection inside of Final Cut. That's one of the things. So let's watch a little bit of using external versus internal media in Final Cut. First, let's look at the preferences for Final Cut. When you choose Import, you have two options: Leave Files in Place. Select to link the files in their current location rather than copy them to the library storage location. And then you have Copy to Library Storage Location. We have a comment. Stuart Morgan says, doesn't Final Cut Pro force some formats to be imported into the library? It absolutely does. It absolutely does. We're going to talk about that as we get along a little further. Another comment, internal SSD is for FCPX plugins because you never can add a plugin that is in an external drive. Good point. I did not think about that, but I guess that makes sense. So internal SSD, your plugins have to be on the internal SSD. I never thought about that specifically, but that's interesting to know. Internal is faster on modern Macs, but buying large internal storage is a lot of money. So the idea is it's not internal storage. I'm talking about internal into the library. Wherever you store the library, you can store it on an external drive, but you store your media inside the library, internal media inside the library. Select to duplicate the files and place the copies in the current library storage location. So we have the two options, leave files in place or copy to library storage location. Let's start with leave files in place. Select the import dialog box and we're going to go to the media folder we have. Let's import this Sky movie first. Once again, we have two choices here. Copy to library, leave files in place. Let's choose leave files in place. Import selected. Inside of our Final Cut Pro library, I want to mention one thing. I'm not using the Finder. I'm using something called Pathfinder. That's one of my tips for today. Notice that the Final Cut Pro library has a little disclosure triangle. You don't have to see Final Cut Pro library contents and then it jumps you to another window like Final Cut does. Look at this. You get that in Pathfinder. It's a Finder substitute. I use it. That's one of the main reasons that I use it, for that exact reason. Original media folder. We now have sky.move, which is pointing to our original storage location. Sky.move, sky.move. Let's import that one again. This time Let's choose copy to library. Let's try that once. What that did, it replaced the symlink with an actual copy of the file. That's an important distinction. So when you copy to the library, if you have symlinks there, the same file, it replaces the symlink with the actual file. That's internal. So we have some comments. We're going to add these comments. Usually use FCPX managed library, copy media to the internal library, okay? I do that as well if I'm doing a short video, I'm just doing something that's quick. It's easy. Everything's self-contained. So I use it sometimes, but for bigger projects, there's no way I could do that. I have to organize in the Finder, and I have to name things the way I want them named. I don't want Final Cut Pro organizing them by dates and when they were created and stuff. We'll see what happens there is in a minute. So Garrett says internal is faster on modern Macs, but buying large internal storage, of course, is expensive. I have an 8 terabyte SSD internal on MacBook Pro. Wow. That's a big, big SSD, Eric. I have only a 2 terabyte on my Mac Pro. That's incredible. 8 terabytes. Yeah, Gert says, oh my, nice. Fast and easy for what I do. There you go. Absolutely. The original is still here. It made a copy of the file inside the Final Cut Pro library. Let's import another file. Check our preferences again. Let's choose Leave Files in Place. Import back to our media folder. Let's choose this one of Bryan Cranston that I shot in Washington when he arrived one day. So we have Leave Files in Place here, and we have Leave Files in Place in the preferences both. Import selected. Once again, over here in the Finder, we have Cranston as a symlink rather than a duplicate file. Let's try that again. Rather than leave files in place, we're going to do copy to library. Once again, this is copying the file to the library. Once again, it copied the file to the library. It did not move the file. Here's the original. Here's the copy. That actually changed. So that setting in the import window changes the setting in the preferences. Let's change it back, leave files in place. Go to import, leave files in place. Copy to storage location. Go to import, copy to library. Now let's try something else. Let's try a leave. That's something I didn't know is the preferences in Final Cut and the import window preferences to leave files in place or copy to library are linked. If you change one, it seems to change the other. I don't recall that being the case, but when I was doing this review for today, it seems like they're linked. So you change one, it changes the other. That was interesting. So Garrett says, what speed does your SSD give you? External drives have a speed between 500 and 1200 near 3 gig a second. Same with mine. My internal Mac Pro SSD gives me 3,000 megabits per second, 3 gigabits a second. My two NVMe drives, this is why I get SSD drives, period. I'm not going to do USB 3 anymore. Both of my NVMe, I have one on a PCIe slot, one is a Thunderbolt 3 external drive. They both give between 2,000 and 3,000 gigabytes a second. Very, very fast. Way, way better than Thunderbolt 3. Now, of course, they're more expensive than Thunderbolt 3, right? Yes, definitely more expensive. Files in place setting and dragging and dropping from the Finder. What options do we have? If you notice, you can also hold the Option key and reverse it. So when you drag and drop, it obeys the preference you have set. If your preference is to put it in a library, there'll be a green plus circle when you drag the file in. If you have leave files in place, there'll be a symlink, little curved arrow that shows you that you're not dragging the media into the library. Now, here's the thing. You can reverse that by holding the Option key down. So if it shows it's going to be a symlink alias to the file and you hold the Option key down, it'll change to copy to library. It'll change to that green arrow. That's one of the things. Have a 50 terabyte LaCie big disk for my iMac Pro for larger project, RAID 5 spinning disk. I have to do that as well. I have spinning disk RAID 5s. I have 2 Thunderbolt RAIDs for larger project. The speed's okay. 800 to 1,000 typically is what it goes. Not as fast as the SSD. What I do is first off, I back up everything. Back up. 2 copies, 3 copies of everything. Somehow I lost a stuff on one of my SSDs, 2 terabytes, messing around with Big Sur. It just everything disappeared on it. I'm not sure if I made the mistake or something else happened. Thank God I got Backblaze. I had copies of a lot of the stuff because I can see the catalog. I have a catalog that I use. It's called CD Finder, or it's called Neo Finder now. So I can go and see the catalog of the drive that had no data on it. I could see what was on there, and I went searching for it, the duplicates, and put it back on. But Backblaze, I'm restoring things from Backblaze right now to get everything back on that drive. That was something I also recommend, Backblaze. It's worked very well for me. It's not that expensive. All right, let's finish up this tutorial. First, let's look. So we finished that one. The other thing, so if you put your media internally means inside the library package. The media lives inside the library package. That's great for smaller projects. It's great if you just want to be simplified, but some of my projects have tens of terabytes of data. I just don't want everything in that library that way. The other thing is, the reason I don't use something on a big project is I want to duplicate that project file. I don't want to duplicate all the media inside of it. So I use backups for Final Cut Pro. Version 2.0 just came out. I can pass that file around. I can duplicate it in the Finder. I can duplicate it with backups for Final Cut Pro. I don't have to worry about duplicating the media. I already have duplicates before I start the project. So I want that file very small. I usually use one library per project. And there's a couple of reasons I do that. Some people use one master library and have a bunch of events inside. I use one library per project because if something gets corrupted in that library, I don't want all these secondary events, 10, 5, whatever, 10, 15 events being in danger as well. So I use one library per project. Keeps it simple, keep my events inside as separate things that are happening inside the library, but I want the library's file small. Like I said, when I'm doing something quick and easy, I don't worry about it. Put it in the library, don't have to worry about it. If you put stuff in the library and later decide you want to get stuff external outside the library, what you do, as we'll see in this video, is you change the library storage location to an external folder, and then you consolidate media. You also can choose to make media internal or external by consolidating. Right now we have the media going to consolidate media right over here. And if we want to consolidate all our media over there, we would just do consolidate library media. That would put all the media that we're using over here inside the Final Cut Pro original media folder. Inside of Final Cut Pro original media, we now have symlinks there that are all pointed to our consolidate media folder here. If we change that to inside the library, modify settings, in library, OK, and we once again choose File, Consolidate Library and Media, watch what happens. All the media is copied into the original media folder. There is no longer symlinks. Once again, we'll go back, modify settings, choose consolidate media, choose OK, File, Consolidate Library Media, and once again, we're pointed now to our Consolidate Library Media folder. That's how you move the media in and out of Final Cut Pro, the library itself. Now, have you ever used Consolidate Media to take the media inside the library or outside the library? That's a very handy tool to do that. So some people are not familiar with that, but you can move the media inside and outside the library, and just by using the consolidate command, select the library, change the location in the library inspector, then consolidate media, and all the media in your project will go into that new location. Now, if you just change the library storage location and you don't consolidate, future media will go to the new location, but the rest of your media that you've been using will not. It only affects going forward media, not media that you already have in your library. So Robert says, Richard, I've got a specific Final Cut Pro question. Can Final Cut Pro 10 add captions for dialogue that is hard to hear due to background noise? I I don't think Final Cut Pro does any transcription, if that's what you're talking about. That sounds like it's what you're talking about. Doesn't do transcriptions yet. It would not surprise me if Final Cut Pro 10.5 has that ability, and it also wouldn't surprise me if it doesn't, because third-party apps have that ability. So what you're talking about is transcription with background noise and stuff. So you have to get a third-party company. I'm using Descript, Descript, which is, I think, $10 a month, something like that. It gives you up to 10 hours of transcription plus a bunch of other things. It also is, you can edit text, and it edits your audio file back and forth. It's really, really nice. It's $10 a month subscription, I think. Descript, Descript. That's what I use right now. I've also used Roger Bolton's Core Melts transcription. It also works very, very well as well. So let's go back to here. So I went to London in 1997, and I videotaped while I was there. I was doing vlogging. I held a camera facing myself, turned the screen around. It was a mini VHS camera, the little mini VHS cassettes. I really liked it. Borrowed it from my niece. And so I would hold the camera backwards and talk into it as I was in London, going around different places in London. So I started digitizing those VHS tapes. Boy, that's been an experience. Maybe I'll talk about that on a future Final Cut Pro Radio TV Live. There I am. Looks just like me, right? Let me turn my head. Looks just like me. Look at the haircut. It's almost exactly the same. I've grown a little bit of fuzz, and I didn't wear glasses in those days. But it looks just like me, doesn't it? Let me get the angle right. Haven't changed at all. Looks just like me. So that's me in London in 1977. I'm going to digitize. Listen, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was just starting out doing videography in those days. I have 2 or 3 hours of footage, and most of it's just nothing. I'm not going to use it, but I am going to put together a short little documentation of my first vlogging experience in London. I'll put it together, and I'll put it up on my website and put it up on Twitter and Facebook and stuff, so you get to see it. Look at that, same haircut. Same haircut. So FCPX tips. So one of the tips that I have for you today is media metadata inspectors. There's 2 of them that I have. I have 2 of them. When I buy Final Cut, when somebody takes the time to develop something for Final Cut Pro, I will usually buy their app, even if I don't use it. Some of the apps I don't use. These 2 I use a lot. Let me pull them up here. Let me see. Here's one. Well, where did that go? There it is. Oh, went to the wrong screen. Hold on a second. Here we go. So this one is called Media Info. And what it does, it tells you all its information about your video file. You just drag and drop it on there. In this case, the format is HEVC, high efficiency video codec. Duration tells you the bit rate, the width, the height, display aspect, all kinds of metadata information. Tells you about your audio, what's going on with your audio. That's one of the ones that I had. Here's the other one that I've had recently. Let me see if I have that. Notes. I don't want to pull up those. Where is that other file? The other one is called Invisor. Where is that? Huh. Well, we'll do that one live then. So this one is called Invisor. Invisor. They're very similar. So this is Invisor. You have a place to drag the file. I'm going to drag a file into the sidebar here. And then I like this one. I've been using this one a lot. Let me just go over here real quick and pull up some video files. Just take me a second here. Pull up some files. Original media. So here's a file I'm pulling in, and it instantly gives me some information about it. Extended information once again. It tells me all the information that I need. This one's available on the App Store. I think they both are. I think they both are available on the App Store, if I'm not mistaken. But the other thing I like about this one has the ability to compare files. I'm not sure if the other one has this ability or not, because I haven't used it recently. It probably does. So when you put the files over here, three files over here, you can compare them one and the other. You can compare everything about them. It puts them right in the comparison viewer. Comparison here. Of course, you can stretch these out so they're a little bit different. It's all resizable. You can rearrange them. Actually, you have to rearrange it in here. If you want to rearrange it there, then go back. And it tells you all the information you need. Now, I was doing this with my London trip recently because I was having problems getting my video digitized. So those are my 2 trips for today. And let's see what else is going on here. I think that's just about everything for today. We got a phone call. Hello? Yes, this is Richard. Oh, it's the Final Cut Pro team captain. You're a captain on Thursdays. You're the Thursday captain from the Final Cut Pro team. So everybody wants to know when Final Cut Pro 10.5 is coming out. Can you give us any hint? Not only will you not say it's Final Cut Pro 10.5, but you won't give us any hints. Well, I wish you would. Give us something. I'll tell you then. How about that? I think it's coming out when Big Sur is going to be available this September or October. You can't comment on that? Okay. You have my email address, richard@fcpradio.com. Oh, by the way, I have a list for you over there at fcpx.tv. It's a list of suggestions for improving Final Cut Pro. You've seen it. Okay. Just wanted to check to make sure. Anyway, everybody in Final Cut Pro Radio land appreciates everybody on the Final Cut Pro team. Just so you know. Yes, we sometimes make demands and requests, but we appreciate everything you guys and gals do. All right? Thank you very much for calling Final Cut Pro Radio TV Live. Well, that's getting to be a regular thing now. We get to have a call from the Final Cut Pro team. We got a call from Tim Cook last week talking about stuff. So Robert says, Richard, thanks for the recommended transcription solutions. That's the one that I use. There's a couple of other ones around too. There's one that has a plug, there's a couple that have a plug-in directly in Final Cut Pro. I use Descript, DESCRIPT.com. That's the one I'm using right now. I'm off for a cool shower. Thanks for the tips. One more thing from Apple. New Final Cut Pro bound to be radically different and better. So Eric Emmerich says the new Final Cut Pro 10 bound to be radically different and better in your opinion. Do you think they're going to drop the X and call it something else? I think it's going to be, look, let's just check. Let's just check. Final Cut Pro 10.4 is going to be 32 months old tomorrow. 32 months old tomorrow. I have this countdown timer over here at FCPRadio.com. You can also find the latest Final Cut Pro Radio podcast here. There's Chris Mertens. You can click right on there and play it. Are you a Final Cut Pro guy?
So we're forced to work in Premiere.
That wouldn't slow you down at all, would it?
That's not a good way to edit. Blah, 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 blah. Pop, 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 pop.
So that's over there at Final Cut Pro Radio, of course, as I'm sure many of you know. We got over 1.2 million downloads of our podcast, so we're doing pretty well over there. These Final Cut Pro Radio TVs have tens of thousands of downloads. We had over 10,000 downloads. We're probably approaching 100,000 downloads, maybe more. So we're doing fine here as well. I love the old school phone. It's my phone, one of my phones. Eric says, yes, nice rotary phone. What the heck? The X is dead. I like that. The X is dead. The official name is Final Cut Pro Roman numeral X. They like to pronounce it 10, but if you do the speech on apple.com, it says X as well. Lots of people say X. That's not an important thing. I really don't care one way or the other about that. I call it what I want to, 10X, whatever. Anyway, I think Final Cut Pro, I think it's going to be 10.5 because Logic was 10.5. They could call it anything they want. They could call it Final Cut Pro 11. Don't know. I think they're waiting on Big Sur. I would be very, very pleasantly surprised if it came out in August. I don't see that happening. But, with Apple, they like to be unpredictable, so it could happen. They certainly have a version for Intel Macs right now. They have a universal binary. It works on both with new features and stuff, so they could release it now, but I think they're going to wait for Big Sur. I don't know if Big Sur is going to have specific features that Catalina doesn't have. I don't know. There is the backyard. Final Cut Pro Radio HQ. A little bit overcast today, just a tad. Coffee's all gone. This is a stream deck, which allows me to switch to different scenes with my cameras. I have 3 cameras set up today. I have this one, overhead camera right above me. I'm using Filmic Pro actually for this overhead camera. That's the app that I use. It does a good job. I have this backyard camera, which is my backyard. I have an acre and a half here in Maryland on the east coast of the good old USA. And then this is my main camera that I have. The other thing that I'm thinking of, as far as cameras go, I'm still probably going to get the Sony a7S III. That low light performance is just absolutely stunningly killer. There's no camera that can touch it. So I had it pre-ordered. I canceled the pre-order because I don't need it right now. I have a GH5 and a GH4. I have my 11 Pro Max, which does a great job. You put it in focus there. The iPhone 12 is coming out in a couple of months. I think the first, second week of October, they're saying now. So I don't need it right now. So I'll wait till we either get a little price drop, maybe B&H or somebody else will have a package with a couple $100 off a lens that you need. And at that point, I'll go ahead and, at this point, I'm going to buy the a7S III. Listen, there's so many things I didn't like about the a7S II. There's a ton of things. Didn't have a fully articulating screen. The menu system was crap. A lot of overheating issues, a lot of other issues with it. It looks like they looked at the GH5 and copied everything that the GH5 had that the a7S II did not have, and they put it all into the a7S III. Big thumbs up for that. That was very, very smart. So I'm going to turn that off. So at this point, I'm still going to get the a7S III, and I'll probably get it because of the low light performance alone. When I go film bands and clubs, that low light performance is going to be fantastic. Even when I was filming in London, I mean, it was dark in a lot of places and it's too dark. So I'm going to get it. It has a flippy screen. You can turn it around and hold yourself. But I'm going to wait till I get a little better deal than what it's right now, $3,500, plus you got to get the lens. So you're talking $4,500. The audio interface is another $500. So you're talking $5,000. I'm going to get that down a little bit. I don't need it right now. I don't need another camera. My GH5 shoots 5K internally, and it shoots 6K anamorphically inside. I'm very satisfied with that. It's not, of course, it's not as good low lights as a7S III. So right now, I'm still getting a7S III in the future. So here's exactly what I said. FHQ Group, Sony has been doing very good in the low light department. Just wait. Prices will drop soon. That's what I'm thinking. I don't need it now. Why should I buy it now? I don't need it. I'm not doing anything that I need a camera. If I had a bunch of band shoots in clubs, I would go ahead and get it. I don't. But in the future, I probably will. So at this point, I'm getting the Sony a7S III, even though it's only 4K. I wish it was 5 or 6K, but it's not. That's the low light performance is just stunning. Now, the thing that will disrupt that is the GH6 when it's announced. We'll have to see what the GH6 is. First off, I have all the lenses for the GH6. I don't have to switch lenses, so I have them all. But I don't expect it to be, it's not going to be the same low light. It's no way it can be, but it might be improved enough to see if I buy the Sony. But right now, I'm getting the Sony a7S III, but not now. I'll wait till I see a good price, or if they just give you this lens package and drop $200 off the lens package, something like that. Any other questions? I think that's enough for today. Like I said, it's been a very, very slow Final Cut Pro news. Listen, Final Cut Pro 10.4 has been the most boring update cycle ever in the history of Final Cut Pro 10. It's been extremely boring, 32 months of complete boredom. They did have the big update 10.4.4, which is fantastic. They did have that, but other than that, Metal 2 is not, yeah, I understand that's performance, but that's not a big feature update. But 32 months worth of updates? No. Been a very boring cycle. Here's what has to be happening. They have to be rewriting the entire application from the ground up, or a good portion of it to go to the future. I think this is going to be the start of a new version of Final Cut Pro going forward. Whether they call it Final Cut Pro 10.5, Final Cut 11, doesn't make a difference. Doesn't make a difference to me. But I think that they spent a lot of time. They decided instead of releasing something just with feature updates, just with some updates, we're going to give you something brand new. Or new foundations, whatever. My predictions, it's going to have an audio, better audio. It's going to have a mixer. It's going to have channels, rolls mixer. It's going to have channel strips, whatever. That's got to happen. It's been 9 years and we still don't have a master fader on the darn thing. So are you using any third-party streaming software? I certainly am. Ecamm Live. I'm a big proponent of Ecamm Live. I'm very active on their Facebook groups and other ways. It's a great streaming piece of software. It's a subscription and now, but I got in right before the subscription started, and I have a perpetual license at the 1 tier. I don't have the premium tier because I don't need the features that premium has. But one of the things they're adding, when I add guests right now, I have to use Skype, and it works pretty well. You've seen the guests that I've had. By the way, I will have guests on some future shows coming up. Always have guests. Always enjoy that. But I add them via Skype. One of the features that Ecamm Live is adding is a native way to add people to the live stream. So I'll be looking forward to that. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you have any more questions, go ahead and talk them now. One of the things that I see all the time from people, especially in the Ecamm Live community, they update their software and then they have problems. And they keep asking, can I go to an earlier version? And I copy and paste this all the time. Zip your app before you update it. Final Cut Pro, Motion, Compressor, all these apps, zip a copy before you update to the latest version. That way you always have a copy. You don't have to worry about looking for it online because you won't find an earlier copy. When the London trip that I did, where is that? The London trip that I did, I was on my old Mac Pro down in the studio. I have a recording studio downstairs. The old Mac Pro in the recording studio. It's a 3.1 Mac Pro, something like that. But it always worked with digitizing. So I have an AJA IOHD box that takes component in, takes S-video in, takes all kinds of analog video in and audio as well, balanced audio. I had to get the drivers for that. I think the operating system was 10.8.5. That's the latest that I could use on that Mac Pro and the AJA IOHD drivers. So that's what I updated everything to. It's quite an experience. And then it doesn't work everywhere it's supposed to. Final Cut Pro 7. Okay, I was using Final Cut Pro 7 to digitize. It wasn't doing such a good job. So I switched over, still using the IOHD box. I switched over to QuickTime 7, believe it or not. And there's options in QuickTime 7 to digitize. This is S-Video, SVHS deck I have. So I was digitizing via SVHS, which is better than just VHS. And I was digitizing to 8-bit uncompressed 720 by 486. I think it was 486. And the files are very large, but the quality is very, very good. And I had more success digitizing with that format. I tried ProRes LT. I've tried well, I didn't want to do DV because DV, what is the, it's, you know, the uncompressed is 422 color space. I think DV is 311, something weird like that. So I wanted to capture as much information as possible. So what I do is I captured uncompressed 422, 8-bit uncompressed, and this is standard def, of course, 720 by 486. And I just crop 3 pixels off the top, 3 pixels off the bottom, and zoom it in a little bit, and it looks fine. It looks fine. And then what I did before I did that, I have those original files, which are large. I compressed them. I made a compressor droplet. And compressor, if you don't know, you make a custom setting, and you can right-click on the custom setting and save as droplet, save that droplet to my desktop, whatever. And I made a ProRes droplet, and I made the files via ProRes, and they look pretty good. The color shifted a little bit. Seemed like the ProRes was a little bit lighter, but I used the ProRes to make the opposite of what normally happens. Normally when you use ProRes, Optimize Media, and Final Cut, the file size expand 3 or 4 times. In this case, because I captured uncompressed standard def, the file size reduced by 75%. It was the ProRes files are actually smaller, and still the quality was there. I have both versions. I have trouble throwing things away. Spencer Lewis says, late but here. Thanks for joining us, Spencer. You're in Philadelphia, I believe, correct? So I don't think there's anything else going on. Let's just check here. Doesn't look like it. Thanks, everybody. So don't forget to subscribe over there at YouTube. Let me pull that up. Let's see. Where is that? I have so many layers here on this thing. Let me pull this up. Huh. I don't see it. Oh, there it is. Over here at YouTube, that's not what I wanted to do. YouTube, here we go. YouTube Live. Subscribe over here, youtube.com, Richard Taylor TV. Subscribe to be notified whenever we go live. We do a lot of YouTube videos. My biggest audience is on Facebook. Facebook gets about 10 times the audience that YouTube does at this point. I have some tutorials on YouTube that have 10 to 20,000 views. So I'm going to be doing some videos in the future, some more tutorials. So that, Spencer says yes in Philly. I'm not sure what Nuno Bogus says. A little comment there. Remember to smile. I try to remember to smile. There you go. Thanks for bringing that up. I will certainly try to smile more. I know it's more pleasant. But I'm going to look, it's a boring summer for Final Cut Pro. It's been a very boring 32 months for the most part. 10.4.4 was fantastic. Yes, the Metal update last October, that's almost a year, is fantastic. Nothing since then. It's been a very boring upgrade cycle. Big fan of your videos. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'm going to continue to try to do these once a week, just so we have a place for everybody to come and make comments and stuff. Do you have anything, before I shut off, do you have anything to say to the Final Cut Pro team? They do watch this. They do watch this video, so if you have anything to say, put it in the comments, and I'll place it up on the screen. Let's see what else we have here. Here we go. I'm going to grab a drink real quick. This is my audio interface. I really like this. Apollo Twin X. My iPhone, obviously. Keep track of that. Stream Deck. switches scenes. And there you go. If you have any comments for the Final Cut Pro team, go ahead and post them up here, and I'll put them on the screen. They will see them. Listen, the Final Cut Pro team is fantastic. They're a fantastic group of people. They're very dedicated. They've got something up their sleeve for us. They've got something up their sleeve. They can't just release a version and have a couple of little piddly features. That would be a disaster. It'd be very aggravating. Let's see, Final Cut Pro has not been updated yet, so that's fine. So today we talked about Invisor, I-N-V-I-S-O-R. Let me count down. Invisor. And let me bring these up. Let me see if I can. I don't know. I don't have a way to do that now. But Invisor is a metadata media info app. The other one is called Media Info. And then the other thing is called Descript. Let me just pull that up real quick. .com. Oh, DESCRR. That's not it. Doesn't have two R's. Let's pull that up. It's how you make a podcast. Now, they're talking about making podcasts. So it's Descript.com. It's really nice. It's really nice. Edit audio by editing text. Drag and drop to add music and sound effects. It's a really nice app. Use a timeline editor for fine-tuning with fades and volume. It's really, really nice. So you can edit text and you edit the audio. Live collaboration, real-time multi-user editing and commenting. But there's the timeline. The reason that I use it, though, is because they do transcription. That's the reason I get it, is for the transcription services. I don't need an audio editor because I do that in Logic, but I usually do one pass in Descript first. You edit the text. You can read the text. It goes down. The text goes down. The timeline audio switches over as it goes. Both of them are in sync. You can select words in the text area, and it becomes highlighted. The audio becomes highlighted down below. Then you can press delete. It deletes. One of the other things, you can search for words. Like if somebody is doing a lot of ums and ahs, or if they repeat themselves a lot, you can search for those words and all the instances of that word will come up, and you can delete them all with a single click. But the main reason I get it is for transcription services. All right, everybody, I think I'm going to head out of here today. I appreciate everybody stopping by. Just take a quick look at the backyard once real quick before we go. Not much activity. All right, everyone. Question for Final Cut Pro team. We got one in. Any plans to include Scene Kit in Apple Motion? It's already available in Xcode or ARKit. It's to load third-party models. That I don't know. I don't know how much the Final Cut Pro team and the Motion team, I guess they talk to each other. But anyway, they'll see that. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Go over there, subscribe over there at YouTube, youtube.com, Richard Taylor TV. You can follow on Facebook, Richard Taylor TV, Instagram, Richard Taylor TV, Twitter, Richard Taylor TV. Now, I don't do much on Instagram, and don't friend request me on Facebook. I don't take friend requests from people I don't know, but you can follow on Facebook now. All right, everyone? I appreciate everybody stopping by. Tell your friends. Talk to you later.